Maria Santos never imagined that love would lead her to death, or that two doctors, Dr. Farid Khan and Dr. Omar Al-Safi, would turn the sterile halls of St. Al-Rayyan Medical Center into the stage for her brutal murder. What began as forbidden affection inside a Dubai hospital spiraled into obsession, betrayal, and a deadly secret that the walls tried to hide but could never contain. In early 2019, St. Al-Rayyan Medical Center in Dubai hired a new nurse named Maria Santos, a 27-year-old woman from the Philippines. She arrived with hope in her heart, carrying dreams of building a better future for her family back home. Her quiet demeanor and dedication to her work made her stand out among the staff. Patients often spoke kindly of her, saying she had the softest hands and the warmest smile. Maria worked mostly night shifts, where the endless white corridors and the faint hum of machines filled the silence. The hospital, though bright during the day, transformed into something entirely different at night. Quiet, still, and almost eerie. It was in those late hours that Maria's true commitment shone through. She never complained, even when she was exhausted from double shifts or missed calls from her mother back home. She lived alone in a small, neatly kept apartment a few blocks from the hospital. Her life in Dubai was simple, almost predictable. Every morning, she would stop at the same cafeteria for coffee before heading home, always polite, always smiling. Yet behind that gentle expression was a loneliness that few noticed. Far from her family and surrounded by the fast-paced lives of her colleagues, Maria often felt invisible. She poured her emotions into her work, finding comfort in caring for strangers. But as the days turned into months, that quiet routine began to shift. Attention started coming her way from places she never expected. Two doctors, both powerful and well-respected, began to notice her. At first, it seemed harmless, almost flattering. But this attention would soon lead her down a path of secrecy, betrayal, and tragedy that no one in the hospital could have imagined. Dr. Farid Khan was one of the hospital's most respected cardiologists, a man admired by patients and feared by interns. He was in his early 40s, confident and disciplined, with a calmness that often reassured those around him. He first noticed Maria during a late-night emergency when she stayed long after her shift ended to assist in a critical case. Her focus and quiet courage caught his attention. In the days that followed, he began finding small reasons to pass by her station, offering help or sharing light conversation about patients. To Maria, he seemed kind and fatherly at first, someone who understood the pressure of the job. But soon, the warmth in his gestures grew more personal. Farid had a wife and two children who lived abroad, a fact he rarely mentioned. His marriage was strained, and Maria's innocence felt like a distraction from his lonely routine. What began as admiration slowly turned into something deeper. He started staying later at work, volunteering for night duties just to spend time with her. Maria, flattered by the attention of someone so senior, allowed the friendship to blossom into something secret. Their moments together became the talk of quiet corridors, but neither cared. The thrill of secrecy made it feel alive. To the staff, they looked like two dedicated professionals. Behind closed doors, they were entangled in emotions neither fully understood. Maria told herself it was harmless affection, something temporary in a lonely city. But Farid began to change, becoming possessive, jealous of anyone who spoke to her. His once gentle nature started to darken. Maria didn't realize that what she thought was affection was slowly turning into obsession, one that would soon spiral far beyond her control. Dr. Omar Al-Safi was known throughout St. Al-Rayyan Medical Center for his confidence and arrogance. He was one of the youngest surgeons to gain a leadership position, admired for his skills but disliked for his pride. His charm was effortless, his smile disarming, and he carried himself like someone who believed he could have anything, or anyone, he wanted. When he first met Maria during a surgery rotation, he saw her as just another nurse. But the more he observed her quiet professionalism, the more intrigued he became. She didn't try to impress him, didn't respond to his subtle flirtations, and that only made him want her more. Omar was used to admiration, used to women being drawn to his power and wealth. Maria's distance felt like a challenge he couldn't ignore. He started finding excuses to call her into his operations, praising her in front of others to win her trust. Slowly, his gestures became more personal, an unexpected compliment, a lingering look, a message after work hours. Maria tried to remain polite, but Omar's attention was difficult to escape. She didn't want to cause trouble, especially after already being entangled with Dr. Farid. Yet the hospital's environment made avoidance almost impossible. Soon, whispers began to circulate among staff about Omar's growing interest. Some warned Maria quietly, telling her he was not someone to get involved with. But rumors traveled faster than the truth, and it wasn't long before Farid heard of Omar's behavior. What started as professional jealousy turned into anger. The two doctors began subtly competing for Maria's attention, both unwilling to step back. She became trapped between them, unaware that her silence was feeding a dangerous rivalry that would later cost her everything. The growing tension between the two doctors reached its breaking point late one evening in the hospital's staff lounge. Dr. Farid had overheard Omar boasting to a group of interns about his special friendship with one of the nurses. The name wasn't mentioned, but Farid recognized the description immediately. His anger flared, and he confronted Omar privately. The exchange was heated but short-lived, ending with a silent understanding that their professional relationship had turned into something darker. From that moment on, every shared corridor, every operating room, carried a quiet hostility. The air between them was heavy, charged with unspoken resentment. Maria sensed the change. The once friendly smiles were replaced by cold stares and awkward silences. She could feel the tension tightening around her like a rope. She wanted to escape it all, but didn't know how. The hospital, once her safe space, now felt suffocating. Her colleagues noticed the change in her behavior. She became withdrawn, often working in silence and avoiding eye contact. Rumors about her spread through the staff like wildfire, some exaggerated, others cruel. The administration called her in for a quiet warning, reminding her that personal entanglements could harm the hospital's image. Ashamed and frightened, Maria decided to end both relationships and focus only on her work. She stopped replying to late-night messages and avoided being alone with either man. Farid's pleas for forgiveness turned to anger, while Omar's arrogance shifted into frustration. Each man felt betrayed in his own way. Maria's decision, meant to bring peace, instead created resentment that grew more dangerous with each passing day. In the sterile silence of the hospital, jealousy and pride were beginning to turn into something far more sinister. 2 months after ending both relationships, Maria began feeling unusually tired and nauseous. At first, she blamed the long hours and constant stress, but when the symptoms persisted, she decided to visit a nearby clinic. The test results confirmed what she feared the most. She was pregnant. The news left her frozen, sitting in silence as the doctor's words echoed in her mind. She didn't know how to react or whom to tell. The realization that one of the two doctors could be the father filled her with dread. In a conservative environment like Dubai, such a scandal could destroy her career and her life. Maria spent days in confusion, replaying every moment in her mind. She eventually confided in Farid, hoping for understanding, but his response was panic. He insisted that no one could ever find out and urged her to stay quiet. He spoke about his family, his reputation, his career, everything except her safety. His fear made her feel small, like a problem to be hidden. When Omar eventually found out, he reacted differently. He mocked her, accusing her of lying to trap him. He told others she was trying to ruin him, turning the gossip into cruelty. Maria felt trapped, surrounded by judgment and isolation. She stopped socializing altogether, spending most of her time in the patient recovery ward, where no one asked questions. Her body began to change, and she grew terrified that someone would notice. The pregnancy that should have brought hope became a shadow following her everywhere. In her heart, she knew she couldn't hide it forever. What she didn't realize was that her secret had already begun to spread, and the people she feared most were already planning their next move. The first threat appeared as a folded note tucked inside Maria's locker. At first glance, it looked like an ordinary piece of paper, but when she opened it, the words made her hands tremble. Leave before it's too late. She tried to convince herself it was a cruel joke, something written by a jealous colleague. But as the days passed, the warnings continued. Some messages were scribbled on scraps of paper, others sent from unknown numbers to her phone. Each one grew darker and more personal, as if someone was watching her every move. Maria began living in quiet fear. She changed her routine, avoided staying alone, and started taking the bus instead of walking to her apartment. Sleep became difficult. Every sound in the hallway made her heart race. When she confided in a close coworker, the advice she received was simple but painful: resign and go home. But Maria couldn't. She needed the job, the income, and the stability it provided for her family back in the Philippines. One evening, she found a note written in red ink: "You don't belong here. You'll regret staying." That same night, she thought she saw someone following her in the parking lot, but the figure disappeared into the shadows. The next morning, she reported everything to her supervisor, who dismissed it as paranoia. The hospital, more concerned about its reputation, avoided involving authorities. Security footage was checked, but showed nothing clear, just a faint silhouette near her locker. The warnings didn't stop. Maria began to realize that whoever was behind them was close, perhaps even someone she passed in the hall every day. And soon, they would no longer be satisfied with just threats. On a quiet Thursday night, Maria volunteered to cover an extra shift in the maternity ward. She wanted to stay busy and avoid being near either of the two doctors. The hospital was unusually still that night. The air felt heavy, the lights dimmer than usual. Only a few nurses and security guards were on duty. Around 2 a.m., the CCTV camera in the main corridor captured Maria walking toward the storage room with a file in her hands. She appeared calm, unaware that this would be the last time anyone would see her alive. When her shift ended at 7 a.m., Maria hadn't clocked out. Her colleagues assumed she had left early, but by the afternoon, worry began to spread. Her phone went unanswered, her apartment door remained locked, and her uniform bag was still hanging in her locker. By evening, the hospital administration filed a missing person report. The Dubai police arrived quickly, sealing off parts of the hospital and reviewing hours of surveillance footage. The footage showed nothing beyond Maria's final walk down the hall. No one was seen following her, no sign of struggle, no exit recorded. It was as if she had simply vanished within the hospital walls. Rumors erupted among staff, some whispering about foul play, others suggesting she had run away in fear. The truth was far darker than anyone imagined. 2 days later, the janitorial staff began complaining about a foul smell coming from one of the unused storage rooms. What they found behind those doors would reveal the horrifying end of Maria's story and expose secrets that the hospital had tried so desperately to hide. 2 days after Maria's disappearance, a janitor was assigned to clean an old storage room at the far end of the hospital, a place rarely used except for storing broken equipment and old patient files. As he opened the door, a foul, sickening smell filled the air. Thinking it was spoiled chemicals, he stepped inside, only to freeze in horror at what he saw. Behind a stack of dusty boxes, partially covered with a hospital sheet, lay the lifeless body of Maria Santos. Her once neat uniform was torn, and there were visible bruises on her arms and neck. The scene was chillingly silent except for the faint hum of the fluorescent lights above her. Within minutes, the hospital erupted in chaos. The police arrived, sealing off the area as investigators and forensic teams swarmed the scene. Staff members stood in shock, some crying, others whispering in disbelief. Maria's death sent waves of fear through every department. Forensic officers noted signs of a struggle, suggesting she had fought back against her attacker. Her ID badge and phone were missing, but her necklace, a small cross, was still around her neck. Traces of cleaning chemicals were found on the floor, suggesting someone had tried to wipe away evidence. It became clear the killer knew the hospital well and had access to restricted areas. Rumors spread that one of the doctors was involved, but no one dared speak openly. The administration urged staff to stay silent, fearing media exposure. Maria's body was taken for autopsy, while police began questioning everyone who had been on duty that night. Behind the professional calm of the hospital walls, panic grew. The secret that had started as a forbidden love had now turned into a brutal murder. The investigation began immediately after Maria's body was discovered. Detectives from Dubai police spent hours interviewing hospital staff, analyzing surveillance footage, and combing through every corner of the building. It didn't take long for suspicion to fall on the two men who had once been closest to her, Dr. Farid Khan and Dr. Omar Al-Safi. Both had known about her pregnancy, both had been linked to her emotionally, and both had reasons to keep her quiet. When questioned, Farid appeared anxious and defensive, while Omar maintained his composure, insisting he had nothing to do with her death. Detectives quickly realized the case was more complicated than it seemed. The CCTV footage confirmed that both men had been in the hospital that night, but gaps appeared in their alibis. Between 1:45 a.m. and 2:30 a.m., neither could be clearly accounted for. Security logs showed that Farid's access card had been used near the storage area, but Omar's fingerprints were found on a cabinet close to where Maria's body was discovered. Both denied being there. Investigators also discovered that Maria had written an email to someone just days before her death. In it, she mentioned feeling unsafe and hinted that she was planning to tell the truth soon. The email was still saved in her drafts, never sent. Forensic experts traced deleted files on her phone, revealing she had recorded voice memos about the threats she was receiving. Those files were wiped clean shortly before her death. As evidence slowly mounted, tension grew inside the hospital. Staff whispered about secret meetings and missing documents. It was clear that Maria's murder wasn't a random act of violence. It was carefully planned by someone who understood the hospital's every corner and had something terrible to hide. During a second, more detailed search of the hospital, investigators found a small flash drive hidden beneath the bottom drawer of a supply cabinet. It had been taped underneath in a place only someone who worked there would know to look. When analyzed, the contents of the drive shocked everyone. It contained several short video clips, all recorded on Maria's phone. In one, she spoke in a whisper, saying she felt unsafe and that someone is following me. In another, she recorded her desk and mentioned receiving anonymous messages telling her to leave. But the final clip was the most disturbing. It showed Maria crying softly, saying she was ready to tell the truth about the two doctors and her pregnancy. Alongside the videos, investigators found a series of photos and text screenshots linking both Dr. Farid and Dr. Omar to her. The evidence revealed their relationships and confirmed the love triangle that had been hidden for months. Forensic analysis uncovered traces of DNA under Maria's fingernails, later matched to Omar. It was undeniable proof that he had been in physical contact with her before her death. When police confronted him with the evidence, Omar's confidence began to crack. He insisted that they had only argued that night and claimed she was alive when he left her. Despite his denial, he was arrested and charged with assault and obstruction of justice. The hospital administration tried to downplay the story, calling it a personal tragedy, but the media quickly uncovered the scandal. The city buzzed with rumors, and public anger grew. Everyone believed the case was solved, but detectives weren't convinced. Something about the scene, the missing badge, the chemical traces, suggested there was still another layer of truth waiting to be uncovered. Just when everyone believed justice had been served with Omar's arrest, the investigation took a disturbing turn. Forensic specialists released a new report that changed everything. The cause of death, initially assumed to be strangulation, was actually a lethal injection of potassium chloride, a substance used in hospitals for specific cardiac treatments. The injection had stopped Maria's heart within seconds, leaving almost no visible trace. Only someone with advanced medical knowledge and access to restricted supplies could have administered it. This revelation immediately raised questions. Omar, a surgeon, had access to many drugs, but the security log showed that only one doctor had withdrawn potassium chloride from the pharmacy that night, Dr. Farid Khan. When confronted, Farid appeared shocked, denying any involvement. But investigators uncovered surveillance footage showing him entering the medical storage room just minutes before Maria's final appearance in the hallway. His explanation was vague, claiming he was preparing for an emergency case, but there was no such record in the system. Detectives began piecing together the sequence of events. It became clear that both doctors were involved in Maria's final hours. Omar had confronted her violently in the hallway, possibly during an argument about the pregnancy. Farid, arriving shortly after, found her injured and terrified. In a twisted act of desperation, driven by jealousy and fear of scandal, he decided to silence her permanently. The potassium chloride injection ensured a quick death, making it look like cardiac failure. He then tried to clean the scene, never realizing evidence would betray him later. The discovery stunned everyone. The truth was darker than anyone imagined, a story not of passion alone, but of betrayal, obsession, and two men whose pride had turned deadly. The courtroom was filled to capacity when the trial began, journalists and onlookers crowding every seat. The story of Maria Santos had become one of Dubai's most followed cases, and the shocking details drew global attention. The prosecution presented the evidence in chilling sequence: the surveillance footage, the flash drive, the deleted messages, and the forensic report confirming the potassium chloride injection. Both doctors sat expressionless as Maria's final moments were reconstructed. Farid's calm demeanor began to crumble when the court heard how he had accessed the restricted medication just minutes before her death. Omar's arrogance disappeared when confronted with DNA evidence linking him to the assault. The court found Dr. Omar al-Safi guilty of assault, obstruction of justice, and tampering with evidence. He was sentenced to life imprisonment. Dr. Farid Khan faced a harsher fate. His premeditated act of administering the lethal injection earned him the death penalty. The verdict sent shockwaves through the medical community, exposing how power, secrecy, and pride could destroy lives within even the most trusted institutions. Maria's family flew in from the Philippines for the final hearing. They sat silently, holding her framed photograph, tears flowing as justice was read aloud. The hospital later issued an apology, though it could not erase its earlier negligence. A small memorial plaque was placed near the maternity ward, engraved with her name and the words, "Her kindness will not be forgotten." Nurses still pause there sometimes, whispering prayers for her soul. Maria's story became a cautionary tale, a reminder that beneath the polished floors and white coats of a hospital, dark human emotions can lurk. Her death exposed not just a crime of passion, but the terrifying truth of what jealousy and pride can make people do.